Whoa.
Okay. First off, I know I need a haircut. But more importantly, I don't know how to introduce today's game. I have been racking my brain, staring at a Word document, trying to find a way to naturally segue into this.
Time to shuffle up and deal! I've got a killer hand!
I've got a killer hand.
You're gonna get it!
You're gonna get it.
Quit imitating me!
I got nothing. I don't know what to say to that, and that's not even the weirdest thing. I don't even have a clip planned as I'm recording this. I'm just gonna pull one because throw a stone and you'll hit nonsense. So, God Hand.
God Hand was developed by Clover Studios, makers of Okami and the Beautiful Joe series, and released in 2006. Despite it being over a decade old, I still see it being brought up from time to time. Fans will naturally sing its praises as one of the most underappreciated games in the PS2 library, but the main reason God Hand keeps coming up is because of one particular review. IGN gave the game a notorious score of 3 out of 10, labeling God Hand as a bad game, and to this day, it is still cited as one of the prime examples why people shouldn't trust not only the site, but gaming critics as a whole.
A critic's power lies in the consistency of their voice, but when you're consistently wrong...
Now, you might ask, why exactly did it fail? Well, this was probably one of the reasons.
So, yeah, there's actually a fair bit of pressure for me to like this game. But hey, I'm willing to give most things a fair shot, so I went on my PS3 and downloaded the game off the PlayStation Network to see if it deserves all the love and admiration that it gets, or if maybe a 3 out of 10 was an appropriate score. Without further ado, let's get started.
First thing to note is a certain image that appears before you even reach the main menu. This mature content warning right here pretty much sums up everything you need to know about the game. You're gonna see some messed up shit? Here's a guy kicking another guy in the dick. Quote it, slap it on the box, review over. Okay, I'll continue, but if you think I'm joking about how much this picture represents the final product, just wait. We open on the protagonists arriving in a small desert town.
Water!
Gene, this place reeks.
I know. Wait, you don't expect me to mop up, do you?
Come on, those guys are cake.
Not to mention, much sexier than you.
This is Gene, wielder of the titular God Hand, slayer of demons, and defender of the innocent.
The only bitch that needs training is you.
Gene is an asshole.
Take this.
Ah, been turning tricks, huh?
Asshole.
His cocky attitude and habit of dropping terrible one-liners makes him really hard to root for. He's the kind of guy that tries way too hard to be cool. Sorta like me.
You're all a bunch of freaking idiots!
His sidekick Olivia isn't much better, always giving Gene crap, though to be fair, how could you not, throwing him into dangerous situations and threatening him with sharp objects, while she hangs around in a hotel room sleeping and taking bubble baths. To be fair to our protagonist, though, everyone in this game basically sucks. There's not a single character that isn't either a jerk, a one-off setup for a punchline, or a walking stereotype. Every guy is a dumb meathead, and every woman is overly sexualized. If you're the easily offended type, this whole thing probably isn't for you.
You must keep working! More than one of you should be enjoying this!
But I'm not actually saying any of this as a criticism, really. This is a prime example of a game that knows exactly how stupid it is. I mean, you routinely walk up on guys performing a synchronized dance number while they wait for the fighting to start. It doesn't pretend to be anything else and goes all the way wearing its silliness on its sleeve proudly with such enthusiasm, it's impossible not to respect on some level. You'll groan and facepalm quite often, but you'll probably still have a smirk on your face as you do. And while many of the jokes and one-liners are just bad, there are enough that are so ridiculous they wrap back around to being completely hilarious.
Wait, you're not a human, are you?
Oh, what gave it away?
Back to our heroes, we have no context for what's going on and who these thugs approaching us are, but whatever, let's beat up some dudes. God Hand at its core is a brawler, but it doesn't control like any brawler you've played before. Most games in the genre would traditionally play out from either a 2D perspective, think Final Fight and Double Dragon, or with a pulled-out camera like Devil May Cry or Bayonetta. In either case, you get a clear view of the action, know where the bad guys are, and can deal with them accordingly. Well, throw that shit out the window, because this is God Hand, and it doesn't play by your rules. Instead, the game opts for a fixed, behind-the-back perspective with tank control movement, and yes, that's about as weird as it sounds. The best comparison I can make is Resident Evil 4. Remember when you'd shoot a Ganado and sometimes you'd get the chance to do a context-sensitive move like a roundhouse kick or suplex? Yeah, so someone went and made an entire game around that. It's almost like these two games had the same director or something. A beat-em-up with tank-like movement probably doesn't sound like a great idea, and it isn't, but it honestly doesn't take that long to get used to. The main problem with this setup is that, well, you can't see behind you. This can lead to enemies that are off-screen getting free hits and messing up your combo strings, and that's annoying no matter how you slice it. You do have a quick 180-degree turn that will let you face those hitting you in the back, but that just leaves you open to those formerly in front, so it's best to completely disengage, run away a bit, and turn around so everyone is in front of you once more. Returning to the story, Gene fights his way through several parts of this desert town before stumbling upon this scene.
Christ!
If you want some blood serum, come and get it!
There's actually a mechanic where you can save civilians who then give you some kind of reward, but this early in the game, I didn't realize saving this guy was possible, so I sort of just ran by and went to the next area. Sorry, dude. And in this next area, Gene is introduced to the first boss fight.
Hey! Sweetie! You're not going anywhere until you answer our quiz question! He's such a sexy man! Just my type!
What? What are you cutting to me for? You expect me to add to that? I'm good.
I'm not that kind of guy.
And these, let's call them flamboyant gentlemen, proceed to kick my ass. No joke, they absolutely destroy me multiple times, and I'm not coming close to beating even one of them. Now's a good time to bring up roulette moves. These are super powerful attacks that Gene can unleash provided he has enough roulette orbs, card power-ups that occasionally drop from defeated enemies, but more often are found in destructible crates scattered around the environment. The more orbs an attack costs, ranging from 1 to 3, the more devastating and flashy the move. These are pretty entertaining to watch, and come with the satisfaction of doing a lot of damage to whoever happens to be on the receiving end. I bring this up here because it was the primary way I managed to defeat these two, using a ranged shockwave to wear down one of the pairs so I could fight the other mano a mano. This tactic did rely heavily on additional orb power-ups spawning from the crates around the arena, not to mention helpful fruit drops that restore health, so I admit there was a fair bit of luck involved overcoming these fights. The first guy I defeated was even nice enough to drop a banana when I beat him.
And that's really generous of him. I mean, who doesn't love a good snack? I mean, why else would he have this? Oh.
Since we've gotten the camera and special moves out of the way, let's talk about the combat system itself, often the most praised aspect of God Hand. You have one combo performed by repeatedly hitting square that starts with 4 attacks and can be upgraded to 6, and then 5 additional moves mapped to other buttons and button combinations. On its surface, that doesn't seem like much for a game where the primary focus is fighting people. But once you dig into the number of different moves available, or techniques as the game calls them, you quickly see God Hand's potential depth. Each and every strike can be customized to fit your playstyle, choosing from a long list of attacks that only gets longer as you progress through the story. Want Gene to use nothing but kicks? Go for it. Want the first few hits in your combo to be quick punches before finishing with a powerful charge smash? You can do that too. This system allows for a lot of experimentation, and since moves can be altered at any time from the pause menu, there's nothing stopping you from trying something new if you're struggling or just for the hell of it. Now, I'm sure God Hand faithful out there would recommend changing things up all the time to fit certain stages or bosses, and maybe they know the best builds for every possible situation. I, on the other hand, didn't feel a need to change my basic attack strategy once I found one that worked for pretty much everything. Enemies like to block all the time, and stronger opponents will briefly stun you if you hit them while their guard is up, leaving you open for a counterattack. Instead of performing techniques with long animations that might end up getting stopped dead in their tracks, I found it much more effective to do a few quick punches. If they started to block, perform my guard breaker, and then follow up with more punches. Do enough damage and the enemy gets stunned, letting you perform a critical move that involves you hammering on the circle button, like stomping someone on the ground, kneeing a poor guy in the face repeatedly, or spanking the female combatants because shut up, it's God Hand. Speaking of blocking, that's one thing missing from Gene's arsenal. Despite seeing plenty of others do it, he just isn't too keen on the whole defense thing and is incapable of shielding himself from attacks. I guess he does strike me as a guy that takes far too many blows to the head.
Wait, you're not a human, are you?
You are able to dodge using the right stick, which means bobbing and weaving or dashing away depending on the direction pressed, so it's not like you have no recourse. But when you're backed into a corner or on the receiving end of a harsh thrashing, it's hard not to wish you had some kind of basic blockability. And I think that covers just about everything, but I feel like I'm missing something. Oh right, the God Hand itself. What Gene's ultimate power more or less boils down to is a brief period of invulnerability and increased damage. Once you fill this purple meter down here, called the tension gauge, you can hit R2 to unleash the power of the God Hand, and beat the ever-living crap out of anyone around. It tends to make quick work of even the strongest minions, and will take a nice chunk out of any boss's health bar, so it's best saved for when you're really outmatched.
Man, I've been going on about gameplay mechanics for the last several minutes. Forgot about the plot entirely. We should check in on Gene and see how he's doing.
You're either really honest or really stupid.
Yep, he still sucks. Let's check in on the antagonists. These chuckleheads, sitting in one of the least convenient hideouts I've ever seen, seriously, their round table is hovering over a bottomless pit, are known as the Four Divas, and their ultimate goal is to capture the God Hand and resurrect a powerful ancient demon called Angra. We have Elvis, the fat one.
You know what? I'm getting a bit hungry.
Shannon, the slutty one.
You missed me, didn't you?
Belzé, the dapper one. And Azel, the emo one.
I'm gonna do this my way.
Azel also happens to possess the Devil Hand, and is therefore Gene's primary rival. Basically, the entire game consists of these guys sending thugs to beat you up over and over again. Hey, no one said they were great strategists. I've heard over the years that God Hand is hard. Like, super ball-bustingly hard. However, I don't really agree with that. It's challenging, don't get me wrong, sometimes in a cheap way given the aforementioned camera, and I did run into my fair share of progression blockers, especially in the early goings, but in all honesty, God Hand is far from the toughest game I've played. Sure, on normal difficulty, I died a lot and yelled at my television from time to time, but much like a sheet of thick drywall, bash your head against it enough times and eventually you'll get through. Next to your health and tension gauge is a circular meter that fills up as you beat bad guys and avoid taking damage, and once it reaches the top, you level up. At first, I thought this was like a traditional system where I level up and get stronger or something, but this is actually the game's dynamic difficulty system. This meter has 4 levels: Level 1, Level 2, Level 3, and Level Die. The better you perform, the more this meter goes up, the more difficult things get, with enemies becoming more aggressive and doing more damage. And as you get the crap kicked out of you, the meter goes down. The longer you stay at the higher levels, the more rewards you get at the end of a full stage, meaning you'll have access to new techniques and upgrades faster. It's a good incentive to improve your play, but if you're like me and tend not to get much higher than level 2 on average, you can still get by just fine. How about we talk about some bosses? There are a lot of bosses in God Hand. It seems like every few levels, a new wacky character reveals themselves, and a number of them show up more than once. Here's a brief montage featuring some of the more standout introductions.
This time we've got a special guest. Hitting the drums, Double C!
Thank you! Represent!
You came here to kill me too, huh?
Say what?
You're not going to trick me! Try this rock upside your head!
Cartoon Wild Joker! One hard gangster, Diamond! You can find me at the club! Have your pet neutered or spayed! Ow, 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 ow! I'm hurt! I mean hurt! Together we are the Magnific Pow!
Douchebags. Dementia must be setting in. Hope they have a good nursing home in hell for you.
Very well.
These battles are pretty hit and miss, and the ones that miss tend to share one very specific trait: having to take on multiple opponents at once. That can be a pain when fighting normal grunts, but throw 2 or more adversaries into the ring, all of whom hit like freight trucks and have screen-sized health bars, the bullshit levels go from manageable to off the goddamn charts. Remember the first boss fight I talked about earlier, where my victory was determined by spamming roulette moves and hoping the right items would drop so I could do more? Yeah, that's pretty much the only way I got past these encounters.
Oh, but Craig, I played God Hand through like 74 times and I can beat all of them without being touched.
Good for you, we're all very proud. But for me, these fights required maximum cheese and I make no apologies for that. The bosses you battle one-on-one, though? In general, I've got no problem with these brawls and had a good deal of fun taking these guys on. I still died, yeah, but as you learn their patterns and tells, figuring out when to dodge effectively, it usually doesn't take more than a few retries at most before you're wiping the floor with them. The best boss in the game by far is the first fight you have against the Devil Hand. You're not worrying about goons swarming you or getting hit in the back. It's a one-on-one duel against an opponent that is essentially your equal, as long as you don't count the much larger health bar and that he can spam roulette moves as much as he wants. But it's still a great, fast-paced clash that really puts your skills and dodging ability to the test. So Gene works his way through the demon ranks, beating down bad guys and sending each of the main antagonists back to hell while we're filled in on the plot details. Olivia was part of a clan sworn to protect the ancient god hands, and Azel was to be her husband through an arranged marriage. However, Azel, seeking ultimate power, stole one of them, naming himself the Devil Hand while slaughtering everyone else. Olivia fled with the other and ran into Gene, who came to her aid when he saw her being harassed by a group of evil circus performers. Don't ask. And ended up losing his arm in the process. Olivia gave Gene the power of the God Hand out of gratitude and desperation, in hopes he'd be able to stop her ex-fiancé and the other members of 4 Divas from unleashing the Demon King Angra.
So, what base did he get to?
Fucking kidding me?
Olivia is kidnapped by Azel to lure Gene into one final battle. Although I'm pretty sure he was coming to stop you anyway, so the kidnapping seems a bit redundant, but that's not important. God Hand and Devil Hand square off, and this second fight isn't as good as the first. It's similar, but Azel has a few more attacks that are really difficult to dodge, so it doesn't feel as fair as the original showdown. I ended up defeating him by finding a charge attack he didn't seem to know how to block most of the time, getting him against a wall and spamming it repeatedly. Might not be the most honorable of tactics, but hey, it works. Azel is revealed to be the vessel for Angra himself, who makes his presence known, forcing Gene to take on the big man of the underworld.
Sorry I woke you.
This final encounter is a real struggle. Angra is a huge beast that takes up the entire screen, so you don't have to worry about quickly dodging a flurry of blows, but what he lacks in speed, he makes up for in sheer power. The window for successfully dodging some of his hits is very small, with a split second being the difference between avoiding damage or being bitch slapped. And on top of that, Angra has not 1, but 2 massive health bars to whittle down. Unlike other boss fights, there are no crates, pots, or other environmental objects to break for health and orb pickups, but the game is merciful enough to completely fill your health, tension gauge, and roulette orbs at the start. On my 5th or 6th attempt, it was down to the wire. I had managed to beat him down to the last chunk of his second health bar, but I was 1 hit away from death myself and had used up whatever special abilities I had. It was at this moment Angra spawned a minion, and he thankfully dropped an orb card, allowing me to perform a final Hail Mary roulette move that resulted in my victory. With Angra defeated and Gene now possessing the power of both God Hands, Olivia is rescued, and the two have a heartfelt reunion.
I think you should give those arms back! Ugh! Get back here, tough guy!
Well, that was God Hand. Do I think it's the bad game that IGN labeled it as? No, not at all. But I also don't think it's the greatest thing ever. I totally understand why it has the audience that it does, but I can also see why someone really wouldn't like it. The best way that I can think of to describe it is, it's the video game equivalent of a B-movie.
God Hand has some odd design choices that can get in the way. It's clunky and it often tries too hard to be cool, but there's also a good deal of fun to be had if you're willing to turn your brain off. There are enough awesome moments throughout, both of the ironic and non-ironic variety, that you come away feeling entertained despite times where the gameplay fumbles. God Hand knows what it is and mostly accomplishes what it sets out to do. It'll make you groan, it'll make you yell, and it might even make you laugh. Not everyone will be able to get into it, but if nothing else, God Hand is definitely a unique experience.
Overall, I liked my time with God Hand, and I'm glad I finally decided to give it a shot. Although really, it wasn't nearly as challenging as I thought it would be. Over the years, I've always heard, oh, God Hand's gonna make you scream, and you're gonna want to throw your controller across the room, but I never really felt like that. I struggled, sure, I died a lot, but I've played way harder games in my day. In fact, I feel confident enough that I think I can get through the entire game on hard. So, how about, as a fun little bonus, we start my hard playthrough right now. Let's play Part 1, God Hand. Let's do it. And fuck that!